So hello, we're here today with Les Seifer from Tremor Video. Obviously Norbert's here as well. To introduce yourself, can you explain who you are and what you do here?
Who am I? I am Les Seifer. I'm the global head of creative for Tremor International. That is a growing ad tech company. We have a DSP in Tremor Video. We have Unruly, who is our SSP. We have a DMP and all solutions to tie all this end-to-end stuff together. And so I oversee a global team of digital creative experts, is the best way I could put this. So we're based across the globe in all regions. We kind of do two separate things, I would say. So our, part of my team brings Tremor International's own branded stories to life, working with marketing and product marketing and all the things you do as an ad tech company. The other part of the team is Truly, which is our in-house creative studio. It is been around for a long time, and we basically see our role as bridging the gap in the digital space across all screens between brands, media teams, creative teams, always disconnects, but always opportunities. So we see our just kind of sitting in that sweet spot to help them out.
Amazing. And so what's then your background? What brought you to this role, to this place, to this chair?
So I came in, I would probably say in the second wave of ad tech. So like many people, not at all from this industry. I had no idea what ad tech was. I had friends who were in it. And I think a lot of people at the time did a similar thing. They were making career changes from either traditional advertising or broadcasting or other, like way out of left field. And I was more out of left field probably, but always dancing around creative. So I worked in the fine art world for a very long time, in galleries, wearing many hats, doing marketing with that as well. A designer, I did concert posters for touring musical acts way back when. I've always painted. I'm a painter, I show in galleries, so always creative, but this kind of intrigued me because it was like creative but technical as well. And it was like a nice way to bridge the two gaps, which I think is always that weird tension we still have to this day of like, cool, there's all these technical solutions, but how do you bring it back to the creative? How do you bring it back to the person who actually sees the ad, who doesn't care about all of that stuff, the targeting and the measurement and all the other technical terms we use. They just see an ad at the end of the day. How do we make it feel like a really valuable experience for them?
And so what's a usual day look like? Is there a normal day?
There is no normal day in this industry ever. But I would say for me, these days is less in the weeds, getting my hands dirty with the creative. It's more biz dev, people management, looking for opportunities. So I'm on the phone all day, or I'm in rooms all day talking at this point. So it's always looking for opportunities with folks like you, like how else can we do some exciting things? It's working with my directors on my team, setting the vision, collaborating on the vision for what Truly can do in industry, going to conferences, things like that. Yeah.
And then in terms of kind of your own personal attitude towards advertising, right? So we're kind of trying to find some best practices. What keeps some messaging in mind, right? So can you think back to maybe the first ad that you can remember, or something that sticks out?
First ad, so I'm going to date myself. So back when I was really young, I remember a lot. What I remember about commercials was basically, you watch cartoons, you get cereal ads. They were cartoons. They felt like they were almost like the content you were already watching, but catchy jingles. But the thing with TV back then is like they had big audiences. Like there wasn't a lot of competition for my eyeballs at that point. But the first ones that really made an impact, I think, would be in the 80s. So like the Apple 1984, George Orwell. Big ad that it was just like there was nothing like that when that hit. It was like a long form. I think it was like 60 seconds long. I think Ridley Scott or someone directed. It was like a big deal, and it felt cinematic. It felt important. It was telling a story. It had a narrative to it, and it made everybody talk about it. Everybody was talking about that afterwards.
Do you think is that retained in your mind because you spoke about it, or because it was different?
It was just so different. I think if I remember correctly, it aired during the Super Bowl. So that was like that's like the biggest thing in the US, watching the Super Bowl. So just having this minute-long film interrupt your big sports event was a big deal at the time. And everyone was like, what is this thing? I've never seen an ad like this. It felt serious, but it also was like kind of disruptive. It was Apple basically introducing itself to the home computing world, right? And against the big boys like IBM or whoever. So they did a really good job. But also I think of like Wendy's. I don't know if you had this in the UK, but Wendy's, like Where's the Beef? I feel like it was around that same time. And that also to me was like ushered in a new thing where there's always been humor in ads. But I think they had like a weird postmodern wink wink kind of absurdist thing going on with that, and it just caught on and became really viral. Like you couldn't get away from Where's the Beef as like a slogan. And I feel like you could probably take that ad and put it on TV right now in 2022 and it would be just fine as is. You wouldn't have to change anything about it. That sensibility still exists to this day.
Right. So Tremor has been not just observing the evolution of video, but also directly participating in it. So from VOD to streaming to CTV to AVOD, all that. Where do you see it going? When will CTV be just TV, and then what's next?
That's a really good question. It's interesting because if you just look at it by teams, we see it like the agencies. It used to be separate. There was a TV buying team and there was like a digital team. Very separate budgets. And digital was all about mobile and desktop for a very long time. They're realizing now connected TV is like, this is TV and this is a new way people consume TV. And we still talk about linear TV, which is your traditional TV. And then you talk about connected over the top TV. But it's really, CTV to me is like that nice blend of, you get the best of both worlds. You get that big screen, biggest screen in the house, lots of real estate to tell a story. People are leaned back. They're taking in the content in a different way than they would on their little phone. But you have some level of measurement and targeting and things you can do that are more interesting than what you can do on a traditional TV. But I think it's all merging. We see the teams merging, we see the technologies merging, and viewer consumption habits I think are merging. And if I look at my son, he's not looking at the TV that much. He's looking at this thing. Yeah. He's looking at movies and TV shows and everything in between on his phone. He's consuming things that were meant for big screens on a tiny screen, which is what his generation's up to.
So we agree that the second screen is in fact merging and also becoming the first screen, right?
Yes, and we're saying, there's ways you can kind of bring the two together. Like we just know consumer behavior patterns of sometimes they're watching TV, an ad comes up, people pull out their phone. What do? So we have to find ways. It's a little more challenging these days to advertise to people, even if you think you know what screen you're going to get them on. What are they doing when they get that ad? Are they going to pull out their phone and look at that? Are they out and about on their phone, and they're maybe they're in a park or a cafe, and there's distractions all around, and you have to be prepared for all of that.
Right. So there's a difference between at-home watching and on the go, but now purely at-home watching. Where do you see this going? Where do you see it evolving, the lean-back experience and the interactivity of that? What do you see in the future?
I try not to make predictions because I'm always wrong with this stuff. I can tell you one thing, it will definitely not be what it is now 5 years from now. That's all I can tell you. I do think we'll have more, hopefully we'll see more like augmented and virtual reality. I think that's been poised to kind of bring more into the mainstream for a long time. You see it in gaming and stuff, but I think as the technology develops and more content's produced that way, that's where everything else follows. Like you've seen, we even dabbled in some of that with advertising, and we were a little early on it, frankly, a few years ago, where it was like, here's a cool new thing, it's exciting, but there was no scale for it, and there weren't enough eyeballs like doing that on a day-to-day basis. So I think that will definitely come into play, and even CTV right now seems very primitive in a lot of ways. Like you have this one remote with just a couple little buttons. There's no universal spec for even how that works across different platforms and smart TVs. So I think we have a long way to go just on that front to like unify things with connected television.
Cool. Now, talk about voice and your experience of kind of voice, smart speakers, voice assistants. Can you remember the first time you ever used a voice assistant?
I'm gonna say it's about a decade ago with Siri, right? When Apple first put that on the iPhone, that was like, it felt revolutionary. So I think it's when I started doing it. I was excited by it, but I thought, it needed a little work. It didn't always hear what you were saying properly, make the recommendations. But I think it's evolved since then. That would be the first time.
And then how's your attitude, relationship changed since then to now?
To voice activation?
Yeah.
Well, of course we have our Echo device in our living room. We have a smart TV. my car. I can talk to my car now when I'm driving. So it's become a much more integral part of my life, and I think most people's lives at this point. You just it's any way you can make things just easier, more efficient, more natural to what you're doing in the moment. It was always awkward. If you're driving and you have to pull a phone out and hit a button to call someone, it's an emergency or whatever, ask for directions, it's very awkward. So certain environments lend themselves really well to that type of thing. And Echo, you could say anything to that. Mm-hmm. My son uses it to do his homework. He'll sit in the living room all day long. I just hear him say, Alexa, what is this plus this? Or what was the capital of this country or whatever? And the funny thing is, as he's doing that, I'm quite aware that they're accumulating all this data and they're going to redirect something back at us related to what my son is saying to this thing. But it's really funny. It's evolved quite a bit.
That's interesting. It's a DMP. I mean, from your vantage point, the targeting is of relevance, and attribution therefore is of relevance. Where do you see the role of DMPs in voice?
I mean, I think, so data sources are always changing, and that's, I'd say in our industry, the most volatile part of things seems to be the data part, how we target people. Just right now as we speak, we know there's some seismic changes going on with cookies going away, and Apple with what's called what's the ID called on the Apple devices? But anyway, IDFA. So all these things that seem like big challenges to how you target people, but there's always something new that comes along. And I think, with our own DMP, we're trying to capture all first-party, third-party data, anything you have. There's automated content recognition, which is, it knows what you're watching just based on, it just knows all the content going live at any given time. And it knows what someone's watching at that point, for better, for worse. And I think the data will always change. The data sources, how we get the data, but the one thing that's consistent is you need to tie that back to your creative. And that's always going to be the need at the end of the day, because the user, the person at home getting it, doesn't know where they got your data from. Most people are mystified when they get an ad for something relevant. But I do think younger audiences are much more attuned to that. They're kind of accustomed to getting something customized to them. Like a targeted ad to them is great. I don't want an ad for something I'm not interested in. So I think that's where things are just headed. No matter what, we're going to give them relevant ads. And then what do you do when you have them? What kind of story are you going to tell them at that point? And what device are they going to be on? You just tailor it to that.
Nice. And so with kind of actionable TV ads, we've been talking about this partnership. What was exciting to you, and why have you moved forward with this? And tell us a little bit about your.
I'm very excited about this. So we've been doing, one of our biggest things is CTV ads. That's I would say as a company we've really focused on TV. As I mentioned earlier, there's been a lack of universal ad specs for CTV that have made it really challenging to do anything too interactive, and there's no browser, universal browser support. So the things you're used to doing with interactive and engagement based ad models, you just can't really do on CTV, or at least you haven't been able to do very well. We have QR codes, which is what's old is new again. They're all the rage now. We have our own custom QR code solution, and it's great. We can brand them, we can animate them, we can do all kinds of functionality from it. But at the end of the day, you're going from a lean back viewing experience, watching TV, to, got to pull out my phone and scan this quickly. It's not the most natural form of engagement. So what I like about this is almost everybody has more and more. They have these smart speakers, they have some sort of voice activated device in their environment as they're watching. So why not take advantage of that? It's much more of a lean back experience in my mind. It seems more natural. You just say a few words like you would do all day anyway. So I like this. Feels like where things could be headed now, where you're taking advantage of other devices and other screens and other things. Yeah.
And are you more excited about the creative applications because it opens up the world of extending the ad spot, or more about the data that you get around attribution?
Both. I mean, so what advertisers increasingly care about is they just want to measure everything. So attribution is super important to them. So I think that's a really important element of this. If we just say we can do it, but we can't show them exactly how people are engaging and how often, it has no value to them. So that's a super important back end part of it. To me, the user experience, because I always like to think user first. So who is the person getting the ad? How are we going to make this, there's always new technology that comes along, but how do you make it relevant and exciting for someone to get? We are also consumers of media, and we also get ads. And people forget that in this industry sometimes. They're like, oh, here's a cool new technical thing that means nothing to the person who's going to get this. So I like to think of all the possibilities. You're going to have this audio landing page. You could do anything with that. And I'm fairly new to this. You guys are experts, but from my eyes, it just opens up a whole new world of a way to engage with the brand.
Yeah. And in terms of kind of the growth of this specific type of advertising, and where do you predict this is all going?
Just the voice activated part.
The voice, that as a kind of a standard component in all of these TV ads.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I think I feel like we're early with it. So right now we're able to put it in. We can produce these TV ads, or we can take an ad that already exists and add this kind of call to action on this TV ad and have someone continue that experience onto the second screen. I have no idea, because I think maybe smart TVs will have, I'm going to guess, more voice interactivity on them without having separate devices, and maybe a more seamless experience at that point. They may already have user information in the TV itself at that point, where people can engage so seamlessly between ad and content and whatever else.
First
beyond.
speaker, second speaker.
Yeah. So who knows? Because, like I said, I don't predict, but I feel like that's where it's all headed.
Yeah, well, if Amazon and Google kind of their dreams become reality, which they often do, it's all about ambient computing and the expectation that you can talk back to any stimulus and any device.
That's right.
Now, we're trying to champion the future of this industry as well. And if you were going to give some advice to a college graduate who one day wants to sit in your seat, what would you advise them?
I would say don't get into this industry if you don't like change. Number one, it is seismic change multiple times a year, constantly. If you're excited and energized by that, by all means, jump on in like I have, and I haven't turned back since then. Everyone on my team, I'm blessed with an amazing team who they're all excited by change. So just know that about the industry before you get into it. And then I would say, whatever you're interested in, is start low, learn everything you can. Honestly, if you're into the creative element, you're not new to the industry, start as a designer. Or developer, creative developer, learn, why you're building things, how that relates to the thing above it, how that connects, at agency to a brand, to a consumer. It's a huge ecosystem. It's very complex, filled with tons of terminology that mean nothing to most people. And I'm always learning, and it's always growing. But if you're into that, I say just start wherever you can and jump in.
Awesome. And then in terms of you and your kind of viewing behavior, what are you watching at the moment?
Oh man, a lot of series. I don't even watch movies anymore. I find movies feel so antiquated to me as a way of telling a story when you're limited to maybe 2 hours to tell a story. When you have these series that go on for,
and the production value is so high.
Production values are huge now. Yeah. So Ozark. I love these shows like this. Just series where, and if you can binge it, great. Yeah. And if you can't binge it, that's fine, because this kind of keeps you. It's a little bit old school. It's I remember Lost. I think was the first TV show where it was week to week, and everybody was talking about this thing. It was just epic, going on for series. I think
it goes on for years, and now it's still cut down, right?
Yeah, now you can just go binge that thing in a 2-week span, probably, if you have the mind to do it.
Better Call Saul is torturing me right now.
Oh my God, same. Yeah, I'm all about Better Call Saul. So, and I have limited time to watch TV, so we just pick and choose. So it's usually series that we're watching, but occasionally nature shows or some random whatever is on there. Some news. I can't watch the news very much these days, but it's occasionally that as well.
Magic. Fantastic. Well, look, thanks very much for carving some time out in your busy day. It's been really great to chat.
Oh, great talking to you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Excited about the future.